Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2024, directed by Joshua Erkman, and this film is called A Desert. So A Desert is about a man who is a photographer who's lacking inspiration. He doesn't have any more ideas, and so he decides to leave his wife for a few days to go to the rural countryside to try and get some inspiration. So when he gets to this motel, he realises that there is a couple that are next door. Now this couple are very strange, but he doesn't think anything of it, and he spends the evening with them, and this is where things go from bad to worse because he ends up disappearing. And so the wife is worried about her husband, so she hires a private investigator to find out what's going on, but the further this investigator investigates, the more bizarre the situation starts to get. So what happens at that point on is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on A Desert. I actually liked this film quite a bit, and it was a lot more than I was expecting because no one ever talks about this movie, which is a great shame because a lot of these films go under the radar. When it comes to cinema, you think of mainstream Hollywood, but when it comes to independent cinema, a lot of these movies don't really get the recognition they deserve. And so this film, the biggest plus to this movie is that it knows what it's playing with. It doesn't have that massive budget to have cheap thrills and superficial qualities. It's a movie that has to rely on its story, and although it doesn't tick all the boxes, it was still very ambitious, and that ambition creates a strong sense of interest. And so the interest from start to finish, I wanted to know how this story was going to unfold, and so that was definitely something that you need in a movie. And this is where a lot of independent cinema really succeed, because you have to create characters, you have to create a strong script and a strong story, because you don't have the luxuries of a mega budget movie. And so this film is incredibly atmospheric. It's a very, very bizarre film, and so you feel as though you're in a nightmare. And as the movie goes on, you get clues as to what's going on, and the main character and the situation surrounding the main character, and it just feels like the nightmare is getting worse. So it's a very surreal feel that the film has. It's a rural countryside, but it's the rural countryside that feels like it's a different universe, and that universe is not something that you want to be a part of. And so you feel as though you're stuck in a whirlwind and you don't know where to go. So the vulnerability is intensified, and it's intensified through the very, very uneasy interactions between these characters. The characters themselves are very uneasy, and the acting allows these characters to create three-dimensional experiences, but it's experiences where you can't quite connect to them completely. And so that creates that sense that it's a different dimension, it's a nightmare situation. And that nightmare situation, I just thought, gets incredibly more bizarre. So if you like your bizarre films, A Desert is definitely one that I would highly recommend. And as I said, the ambition is there. So although the ambition does provide some negatives, at least it was there. At least directors are willing to try something different, and it gives you hope that directors out there have creativity. And so when it comes to mainstream, you have to make all the money back, so you obviously have to do things that are dumbed down to appeal to a wide audience. But this is where independent cinema can really succeed, because it is actually telling you a story and it's not trying to dumb it down to a wide audience. So this is a film where the acting I thought was very decent. As I said, it's really uneasy. You just don't quite feel as though it's real. And so as the situation starts to spiral, I thought characters coming into the movie were just contributing to that nightmare. So you got the couple next door in this motel, and they were sinister, and so they were really creepy. And so I'm not going to give too much away, but as they unfold and you get to know a little bit more about them, I started to feel, all right, this main character is in a really bad situation, but it's a situation where you're never quite sure if he's going to get out of it. And so it's like that dream, as I said, where it's very random, and it's throwing random things at you, and you never know what direction this director is taking. And so when you don't know the direction, so the unpredictability is there, which creates even more fear. And so the fear, I thought, was amplified at a really, really impressive level. And there are some shocking scenes of violence, especially at the end. When you know what's going on, I thought it was incredibly disturbing. And there are some really good scenes of violence, but it doesn't rely on the violence. It relies on the atmosphere. It relies on the uneasy qualities of the characters, and it's the exchanges where I just thought to myself, I'm uncomfortable. So the level of discomfort to this movie is definitely the best thing about it. And at the end, I thought the runtime and the continuity of the film was actually quite fluent. But if I have issues with this movie, there are some moments where I just thought as though it could have been edited out. There are lingering moments where I thought it elongates itself to the point of almost outstaying its welcome. And there are some other areas where it could have tidied itself up. And there are extravagant ideas, and not all of those ideas pay off without giving anything away. way. And so I just thought to myself, as soon as the private investigator got into the film, that's where it started to get stuck a little bit, but it doesn't derail the experience. As I said, it's an independent movie that's daring to be different, and for that I have to give it accolades. So if it sounds like your kind of thing, go out there and see it. I'm going to give The Desert 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.